All right, let's try it this way. What is good art? What does the word good mean? Yes, I was going to tell you a story about when I went to therapy. I've been to therapy a few times in my life, but there was only one time that I actually got a decent therapist to work with, and her name was Heather, and she was wonderful. And at that time, I was going through the worst depressive episode I've ever experienced in my life, before or since, thank God. And no. All right, let's try this again. Kick the cat out. Where was I? I was going through a depressive episode, and a big part of that episode was because I was just starting to unpack the reality of my childhood, not just my childhood, but how my parents have behaved towards me as an adult. And there was so much anger. But at that time, my focus was primarily on my dad. She had me do this exercise where I looked at what a good girl was. And I listed down all these different attributes of what a good girl was, because I was trying so hard to be a good girl. And there was this incredible cognitive dissonance within me that just created so much strife and a lot of shame and self-hatred. I looked at those aspects of what a good girl is supposed to be. And so many of them came directly from my father, implicitly and explicitly. And she had me do this really interesting thing where she asked me, okay, so you're trying to essentially get validation of being a good girl from your father, or from this father archetype that you've created in your head. Now look at him, look at how he lives his life, look at the things that he's brought into his life, look at the way that he interacts in his relationships. You're basing your value off of his values and what he would approve of. Is that the kind of life you want to live? And I think that this applies not just to unpacking our parent stuff, although that's very, very important, but also whose value judgment is your idea of good art based on? Is it your value judgment? Or is it something else, something that came from culture, something that came from your parents, something that came from a teacher in 6th grade? Look at where good comes from and what exactly that means. Another example, one that's more pointed towards the writing life, Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka is widely recognized as a valuable artist, right? Like, we read the Metamorphosis in school. We don't read anything else by him, but we read the Metamorphosis in school. If I wanted to start basing my idea of what good writing is based on what Kafka or people who appreciate Kafka might say good writing is, then there would be a whole set of attributes that I would kind of have to meet in order to do that. But when I look at Kafka, when I look at the writing that he's done and the life that he lived and the kind of person that he was and the kind of personality and experiences that he had, I find myself not wanting to go there. Like, I've only read the Metamorphosis. That was plenty. It's very heavy. And from what I understand of his life, like, that kind of is across the board. He was not a happy person. And I would like to lean towards happiness, especially in my creative work, especially in my writing and doing stuff like this. This is not a good YouTube video. And that's fine. It can be bad. And I'm going to talk about bad art specifically tomorrow. But right now we're unpacking good. Franz Kafka said about reading specifically, but this can be applied to writing because, yeah, there's the interplay. He said, I think that we only ought to read the books that wound and stab us. If the book we are reading doesn't wake us up with a blow to the head, what are we reading it for? On the surface, that feels like such a grand and beautiful thing to move towards. It feels like, oh yes, this guy gets it. We need to be stabbing ourselves in the heart every time we pick up a book to read it. But holy shit, can you actually, do you want that kind of life? And as a writer, do you want to be writing that kind of story exclusively? I'm not saying don't endeavor to write something that impacts someone on a really deep, visceral level. What I am saying is that judging all of your writing and your output by that kind of standard, by is it good? Is it really, really good? Is my English teacher going to approve of this? Is my father going to approve of this? Are the critics going to approve of this? Leads to paralysis and leads to, in my opinion, really dull books. I would much rather read something that's kind of cheesy and a little bit hokey than something that is really trying so hard to be just so good. So here's what I urge you. Take a look at what good means to you when it comes to art and also in other areas of your life, if you so choose. Take a look at what good means to you, and then start to look at where that came from. Who told that to you? And then look at them. Look at either the kind of writing that they do or the life that they're living, the way that they're experiencing the world, their general personality and their levels of perceived happiness that you can see from the outside, because we can see the joy. We can see the joy in people's eyes. Take a look at all that and then ask yourself, is that what you want to feel when you write? Good is subjective. Figure out your own meaning for good. For me, that's joy. That's interesting language. That's characters that I can connect with. That is oftentimes just a fun romp. I've read definitely some books recently that I'm like, that's objectively not good literature, but holy shit, I had a lot of fun reading it. And that is more important to me. I'd much rather go that route. Let me know in the comments, what is good writing for you? And is that yours, or is that someone else's definition of good? All right, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And as always, use your voice. This is a very good kitty. And I think that he's a great sponsor for today's show. Yeah? Dinosaurs sponsoring today's show? Yes, you are. Okay.